Should Blizzard release a fresh Burning Crusade Anniversary server? That's a question I'll try to answer by covering many different topics in this video, such as the good and negative things about such a server, but also what changes they might need to introduce to increase the chance of it being a successful experience. The first topic is going to be about the economy. When everyone starts all over with 0 gold, then things on the auction house also won't be expensive for a long time. Another benefit is that when you're questing or selling things to a vendor, you should be making yourself a decent amount of gold per hour, enough to also get yourself new upgrades on the auction house. On the current Classic Anniversary servers, the inflation is so high, and there isn't really many ways to be making a decent amount of gold every single hour, unless you're playing a class capable of boosting other people in dungeons. What about the negative things? Well, there's usually way more bots on a fresh server, as this is where there's a potential to also be making a lot of real life money. It's also going to be more difficult to get your epic flying mount, as there's not a high inflation, so selling things on the auction house won't be making us a lot of gold. This is just one out of many reasons for why more people would probably also be tempted to buy gold, and why we might also end up seeing more bots in the game. Moving on to the next topic, guilds and communities. Some of the current anniversary guilds will either lose a lot of members or in worst case end up disbanding if they introduce a new server. We have seen this before when they introduced the fresh Wrath of the Lich King servers, and back then it had a negative impact, not just because of this, but because of many things I'll be covering later in this video. The good thing is that many guilds will also start on a new server, which will give you as a player a higher chance to also find someone to either enjoy the game with or be a part of a new team where you will eventually be able to raid. Most of those raid spots are for example already covered on the current servers, and I believe most average guilds has already decided who is supposed to swap either into a Blood Elf Paladin or a Draenei Shaman. This is where a fresh server would probably also increase your chance of getting such a raid spot. This also brings us on to the next thing, leveling. You will get to enjoy classic content once more, but with the new improved Burning Crusade talents, better leveling as some elite quests can now be soloed, mounts being learnable at level 30 with a price reduction, faster leveling as the experience you'll need for some levels has been reduced, and also quests rewarding you more experience, and not to forget many people to level with as a Draenei or Blood Elf, as all other characters will be starting at level 1. There will also be a high amount of low level dungeon groups, which wouldn't be the case on the current anniversary server. There will be no dungeon boost, which will promote team play, which is of course amazing when we're playing an MMO. You will also get to relive the moments where you're getting your first gold, a pair of shoulders or headpiece, a rare or epic weapon, and also your first mount. These things feels like a big achievement to some of us, me included. This is also exactly why so many people are enjoying a fresh start. What about the negative things? Well, some of you were probably just looking forward to head into Outland and get to 70. Now you gotta do classic content once more, at least from level 1 to 58. What I'm also afraid of is faction imbalance. Horde has slightly better racials in the Burning Crusade compared to the Alliance, and if more people end up ruling Horde, then it could also cause a faction imbalance, which is bad if it's going to be a PvP server, but also if you're looking for a raid as an Alliance, as it's going to be way more difficult for you to assemble a party or a raid. I guess this is also the perfect time for me to swap to the next topic, PvE content. The Burning Crusade will be so much more difficult when you're not going to bring your insane epic items into the expansion. I'm talking about raid items from Naxxramas, AQ and Blackwing Lair, as this gear will most likely not be replaced until you start doing level 70 heroics, the new raids, or crafting epic items with your professions. Everything will also feel way more rewarding, especially because the content is going to be a bit more of a challenge, but also a lot more fun to do, as you will be getting upgrades on your way to max level. And I gotta admit, back in 2021, I went into Outland on my mage with the best possible gear, and I never got an upgrade until I reached max level. Therefore, I also didn't have a lot of fun when I were leveling up, as I did most of the dungeons at least 3 times, many different quests, and all I were rewarded were items that I couldn't use, so I rendered these, some gold, and a bit of experience. Therefore, I also had to get to max level before it felt way more exciting to get a new item, which is something that will constantly happen on a first server, as you're getting new upgrades all the time, and these upgrades will have a huge impact on your character's performance. The downside is that it will be more difficult for you to compete for world's first level 70 or speedrunning tier 4 raids, as the other anniversary servers will have the advantage of having next Rammus gear when they're going to progress in Karazhan, Gruul Slayer, or Magferodon Slayer. This is also the exact same case when it comes to competing in PvP. I'm not talking about Battlegrounds, as both factions will probably end up having players from the new servers anyway, but what I'm referring to is going to be arenas. Some classic items are insane in arenas, such as the Mind Quickening Gem, a mage trinket that increases your haste, and this is equal to 20% casting speed at level 70. This is such an insane trinket, as you will be able to land your polymorphs way faster compared to someone without it, which is any mage starting on the first server. But then again, should it really matter that much? I mean, no one is forcing you to reroll a fresh server. You could just stick to your current one and try to get insane classic items and use these in Burning Crusade, as they will increase your chance of getting a gladiator mount, but also make PvE content a bit easier. The next thing I will cover is server transfers. Obviously, it shouldn't be possible to transfer to a fresh server, but what about the possibility to transfer away? The good thing is that if you regret starting, then you won't have wasted time, as you can just transfer to your main server and continue playing that character. In my opinion, it's going to be a bad decision to add something like this into the game. More and more people could all of a sudden end up leaving, and this starting a chain reaction, especially if bigger guilds are leaving the server. We have seen this before when they introduced the fresh Wrath of the Lich King servers. Back then, you were able to transfer away, and a couple of weeks after the release, most people were already starting to leave. Basically because they felt way too far behind. Either they didn't make it to max level in the pre-patch, or they simply didn't have the gold they needed for mount and anything else. They knew they could just transfer away and use all the gold and anything else they had on their main server. When you combine this together with the best scales on the server deciding to transfer away, then you will all of a sudden have next to nothing to do at max level, basically because there won't be enough people to also do in-game content with. And this could result in you having to pay for a character transfer yourself. Anyway, moving on to a completely different category. Bots and character boost. A character boost will of course not be a thing, as it would ruin the entire purpose. However, we don't know if they're going to introduce a level 58 character boost on the current anniversary servers. Hopefully they don't end up doing so, as it caused so many problems back in 2021 when they did this the first time. People did try to warn Blizzard, but they simply ended up ignoring everything, and all of a sudden Outland were filled with bots. The moment one of these got banned, a new account were purchased together with a level 58 character boost, and in a matter of minutes the bot were back to farming the exact same thing. This problem will just repeat itself if Blizzard decides to add a character boost to the current classic anniversary servers. If they do so, then there's yet another reason for why I would much rather like to play on a fresh server, as the person getting banned will need to purchase a new account and start from scratch in the different starting areas. The moment they're 58, they can then head into Outland and start competing against you, but by that time they're hopefully already banned. What other things can Blizzard do to increase the chance of a fresh server being successful? They could extend the duration of the Burning Crusade pre-patch. Back in 2021, it did only last for 2 weeks, and many players were of course creating Blood Elves and Draenei's, but the majority didn't make it to level 58 in the pre-patch, and therefore also wasn't ready to go through the Dark Portal at the Burning Crusade launch day. Another important thing to remember is that back then people probably already had gold, so they could just buy items on the auction house to level quicker, or pay a mage or a paladin to boost them through dungeons. When these things were available, but the average player didn't make it to 58, then it's also going to be impossible on a first server. This is why I do believe they should also extend the duration, probably to something like 4 weeks. Maybe a bit less or a bit more. Let me know what you feel like is the perfect duration of a Burning Crusade pre-patch by posting this in a comment below the video. With all of these things being covered, let's move on to the last part of the video, the conclusion. Is it going to be a good or a bad decision for Blizzard to add a fresh Burning Crusade anniversary server? The short answer is yes, but let me try to elaborate. There seems to already be many people asking for a fresh start, which is why I do believe there will also be enough people to keep the server alive. We might in fact also see many new players trying it out, as they haven't had the motivation to play on the current anniversary servers, as they felt way too far behind because they didn't have thousands of gold, profession alts, or a character at max level. The negative thing is that when you're adding a new server, it will also split the community even more, and some guilds might also end up disbanding, basically because some guildies would like to play on the fresh start and others would just like to continue on their current character. Another big problem is that there will be so many bots in the beginning and probably throughout the entire expansion. Remember, no one has any gold in the beginning, and some people will struggle with affording the amount or to buy a new rare or epic item on the auction house. The moment they start to struggle, it will also be tempting to buy gold, resulting in more bots showing up in the game, probably more than you see on the current anniversary servers. There's also a couple of things that have to be changed. Transferring away should not be possible, and the pre-patch should last for longer than 2 weeks, or the majority will simply not get to enjoy the opening of the Dark Portal because they haven't made it to level 58 yet. This will have a huge impact on the population, as some people will then transfer away if it's possible, or others will just log out and log back into their old server. Another thing I'm a bit worried about is the faction balance. Horde has got slightly better PvE ratios compared to the Alliance, which is why you might also see more people playing Horde compared to the Alliance. This is exactly why Blizzard needs to make sure this is also going to be a fresh PvE server, unless they're adding restrictions to character creations to ensure a proper faction balance. Like I mentioned in the beginning, then I do believe it's going to be a good decision to add a fresh server, especially if they're going to listen to the community and do a couple of changes. Remember, no one is also forcing you to play here, so if you don't really like the idea, you can just stay away and stick to your current anniversary server. And for those of you willing to spend time on a fresh server, then you also gotta be aware that there's a decent chance that it will end up being a complete failure. I mean, we have seen this before when they introduced the fresh Wrath of the Lich King servers and decided not to listen to the community's feedback. If it's going to be the exact same case on a fresh Burning Crusade server, then there's a high chance that I would not even try this out myself. With all of this being said, then I'm also curious about your opinion. Do you believe it is a good decision to add a fresh Burning Crusade server? Let me know why or why not by posting a comment below this video. It will also mean a lot to me if you share and like this video with everyone you know. This way it will get more attention and hopefully also reach out to Blizzard at some point to increase our chance of getting a fresh server. As always, thank you so much for watching and have an amazing day. Peace.